Dawn reports from RAF Middle East list 1,132 Allied sorties over Axis positions from Gazala to Tobruk. Photo-reconnaissance frames show burning trucks along the Via Balbia. 38 vehicles are logged destroyed before reaching the forward echelons. A Luftwaffe diary entry summarizes the day. Daylight movement impossible. 2 years earlier, British air arms were reactive. Requests for support moved by telegraph and missed the fight. In June 1942, a new system appears, forward air controllers on army nets, cab-rank fighters stacked above the line, and bombers directed by real-time ground calls. The expectation in Axis files remains that the RAF lacks the density to interdict logistics systematically. The day's figures show a different theater. The sky functions as a continuous front. If one day can reveal a doctrine, 14 June 1942 records it. Air-ground integration turns supply roads into targets and daylight into risk. 10 December 1941. Cairo headquarters. An Air HQ memo stamped Middle East lands on the operations table. The signature reads Air Vice Marshal Arthur Coningham. The RAF expects to task from the rear. The 8th Army expects delays measured in hours. Reality arrives in the form of a new directive. An air support control system, liaison officers embedded with corps and divisions, common maps, common timings, shared radio nets. Coningham's instruction is precise. Integration, not separation. Air power will become an extension of the ground commander's hand, not a distant service requested by telegram and received too late. Within weeks, the changes take physical form. RAF wireless sets appear in armored cars at brigade level. VHF links connect squadron dispersals on scrape strips to forward controllers who speak directly to pilots overhead. By January 1942, the Desert Air Force fields approximately 13 operational squadrons. Sortie rate doubles inside 8 weeks despite chronic spares shortages. The change is organizational, not technological. The same aircraft, the same crews, but a new architecture of command. An Air HQ Cairo signal dated 21 January 1942 reads, "Efficiency now depends on shared maps, shared language, and shared orders." The sentence captures the essence. 2 services become 1 weapon. The cause and effect is measurable. Embedding air with ground compresses request to strike time from hours to minutes. The RAF and the Army become synchronized instruments, not separate forces coordinating by letter. A new command is born, and with it a new kind of warfare. 3 February 1942. Tripoli. Reconnaissance film from number 1437 flight unspools in the operations room. Only 4 tankers sit at the Tripoli quays instead of 12 the previous month. The analysts cross-reference convoy schedules. Axis shipping tables project approximately 70,000 tons per month to sustain Panzerarmee Africa. Reality delivers less. Combined Desert Air Force strikes, Malta-based Wellingtons and Blenheims, and submarine pressure cut delivery rates across the central Mediterranean. RAF assessment score approximately 41% convoy tonnage lost on certain routes. The maritime campaign operates in parallel with the land campaign. Malta-based aircraft strike convoys en route. Submarines intercept shipping. Desert Air Force bombers attack ports. The 3-layered interdiction ensures no convoy reaches Africa unscathed. Italian naval escorts prove inadequate. Destroyers lack radar. Anti-aircraft armament is light. Fighter cover is sporadic. Axis convoys sail knowing losses are probable. Admiral Arturo Riccardi of the Regia Marina reviews the figures. The numbers are unambiguous. Fuel, ammunition, rations, all categories fall below plan. Rommel's quartermaster branch begins rationing fuel at approximately 30 liters per tank per day. Maneuver becomes constrained. Offensive operations require reserves. Reserves require ships. Ships require safe passage. The passage is no longer safe. Convoy losses force tactical adjustments. Ships sail individually instead of in groups to reduce losses per attack. The measure fails. Individual ships are easier to target. Routing changes avoid known patrol areas. Malta-based reconnaissance identifies new routes within days. Axis convoys cannot escape observation. The Mediterranean is small, the routes predictable. Every ship is tracked from Italian ports to African landings. A Cunningham signal dated 9 February reads, "Attack the artery, not the hand. The principle is operational. Destroy the supply chain, and the front withers without direct engagement." Blenheim Mark IV and Wellington Mark IC aircraft conduct night anti-shipping patrols. Coastal road choke points are plotted from photographic reconnaissance unit frames. Lee light coordination with maritime patrols remains limited in 1942, but the doctrine is forming. Target the logistics and the battle line follows. The campaign's outcome begins before the battlefield, on a harbor ledger. Fuel rationing forces tactical choices. German armor that once ranged freely across the desert now moves in calculated increments. Each kilometer costs fuel. Each engagement costs ammunition. The supply crisis is not sudden collapse but steady erosion. Convoy after convoy loses tonnage to air attack, submarine interception, or mine damage. The losses accumulate. By late winter, the arithmetic is clear. Panzerarmee Africa cannot sustain tempo without resupply, and resupply cannot reach the front without acceptable loss rates. The loss rates are not acceptable. May 1942, Tobruk front. Bulldozers drag pierced steel planking across compacted sand. A strip goes operational inside 72 hours within artillery range of the forward edge. The engineers work under canvas at night using blackout lamps. By dawn, the field is ready. Kitty Hawks taxi to dispersal pens dug into the desert floor. The speed of construction surprises even the crews who will fly from the strip. Fliegerführer Africa estimates fewer than 300 enemy aircraft operational. Reality. Desert Air Force inventory approaches approximately 700 combat aircraft supported by more than 15,000 ground staff. The disparity is not only numerical but systemic. The RAF maintains approximately 95% serviceability in key periods versus Luftwaffe approximately 68%. The difference reflects engineering, supply discipline, and relentless improvisation. Number 208 Squadron conducts photographic reconnaissance. Army liaison teams coordinate with the 9th Australian Division. The integration is seamless. A forward controller identifies a target. The request moves by radio. Fighters overhead receive the call. Response time, minutes, not hours. The system eliminates the lag that plagued earlier campaigns. A photographic reconnaissance caption log marks a 200-mile truck trace on the Via Balbia. The trace represents Axis logistics moving by night, attempting to avoid daylight interdiction. The RAF responds by extending patrols into dusk and dawn. The window for safe movement narrows. Axis convoys bunch at choke points, waiting for darkness. The waiting creates targets. Technology serves doctrine. Kitty Hawk P-40E aircraft carry Voke sand filters to protect engines from desert conditions. Spitfire Mark V fighters provide high cover. Armored radio cars carry forward air control equipment. The tools are not exotic, but their application is methodical. Airfields close to the line enable persistent interdiction cycles. Dawn strikes on fuel points, noon attacks on moving columns, dusk raids on armor concentrations. The airspace is treated as front line, not backdrop. The sky becomes contested ground, and the Desert Air Force controls it with numerical superiority, better maintenance, and integrated command. The result? Axis forces move by night or not at all. June 1942. Cyrenaica. Number 53 Airfield construction wing pours crushed limestone onto scraped earth. Hand pumps fill Kitty Hawks from 50-gallon drums under canvas lamps. The scene is industrial improvisation. No permanent infrastructure, no paved runways, only relentless field engineering that converts thin logistics into operational tempo. The mechanics work in heat that climbs past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Dust infiltrates every mechanism. Yet serviceability remains above 90%. Desert conditions suggest high attrition and low availability. The reality defies expectation. Desert Air Force reports approximately 95% serviceability in key periods. Luftwaffe achieves approximately 68%. The gap is not accidental. Engineering officers, fitters, and riggers maintain discipline despite conditions. Unit operational record books log the details. Salvage truck frames converted into graders, dispersal pens constructed from scrap, decoy fires lit to draw enemy bombers away from real positions. Rapid engine swaps on P-40 Allison V1710 engines become routine. The maintenance challenge is extraordinary. Sand penetrates oil seals, clogs carburetors, and scores cylinder walls. The Vaux filter mounted on Kitty Hawk engines reduces power output by approximately 8% but extends engine life threefold. Fitters learn to change filters every 12 flight hours. Oil changes occur every 25 hours instead of the standard 50. Spark plugs are cleaned daily. The work is relentless, but the alternative is unacceptable. Aircraft grounded for lack of maintenance. Spare parts arrive by convoy from Cairo. The supply line stretches hundreds of miles across desert tracks. Convoys move at night to avoid air attack. Arrival times are unpredictable. Engineering officers maintain pools of cannibalized airframes to harvest components. A damaged Kitty Hawk surrenders its propeller, instruments, and radio to keep 3 others flying. Nothing is wasted. Even punctured fuel drums are repaired and returned to service. Air Commodore Freddie Maitland Wilson oversees airfield development. His teams lay pierced steel plank, grade runways, and establish fuel dumps in a continuous cycle. As the front moves, the airfields follow. A field is marked, cleared, and operational in under 72 hours. The process is standardized. Reconnaissance identifies a site. Bulldozers clear scrub. Graders level the surface. Pierced steel plank is laid in interlocking sections. Fuel drums are positioned at dispersal points. Ammunition is stacked under camouflage nets. Operations commence before the dust settles. Mobility equals persistence. The Luftwaffe cannot escape the Desert Air Force's reach because the Desert Air Force moves with the ground offensive. German airfields remain static, tied to permanent infrastructure. Italian bases require concrete runways and fixed fuel storage. The Desert Air Force operates from improvised strips that appear and disappear as the front shifts. The advantage is operational. Static bases are predictable targets. Mobile fields are difficult to locate and impossible to neutralize systematically. Water supply presents constant challenges. Each airfield requires thousands of gallons daily for engines, radiators, and personnel. Water convoys accompany fuel convoys. Rationing is strict. 1 gallon per man per day for all purposes. Washing is luxury. Drinking takes priority. Engines receive what remains. The mechanics learn to conserve. Radiators are topped from captured Italian stocks. Condensation from night cooling is collected in pans. Every drop counts. An RAF statistical bulletin dated July 1942 notes, operational fatigue mitigated by improvisation and relentless scheduling. The phrasing understates the achievement. What appears as industrial warfare without factories is, in fact, industrial warfare manufactured in sand. The logistics are thin, the conditions extreme, yet the result is consistent. High sortie rates, low downtime, and continuous pressure. The cause and effect is direct. Field engineering converts scarcity into abundance of action. Rapid airfield construction maintains strike radius. High serviceability ensures numerical advantage translates into sortie advantage. The enemy faces an opponent who does not pause, does not withdraw airbases beyond operational range, and does not cede the daylight hours. Industrial warfare without factories, manufactured in sand. The achievement belongs to mechanics working in temperatures that melt boot rubber, engineers laying runways under artillery fire, and logisticians stretching supply lines across trackless waste. Their work is invisible to history but decisive to outcome. 17 July, 1942. Mirza Matru. A forward controller keys the microphone. Above him, a stack of fighters holds at altitude. The method is called cab rank. Aircraft loiter overhead in sequence, waiting for tasking. The controller speaks in plain language. Grid reference. Target type. Marking method. 5 Kitty Hawk squadrons engage within approximately 7 minutes of the 9th Australian Division report. Enemy armor expects a 2 to 3 hour air response lag based on previous campaigns. Reality delivers immediate support. The Kitty Hawks descend, release ordnance, and climb back to altitude. The controller adjusts targeting based on smoke and observed results. The loop is continuous. Observe, report, strike, assess, repeat. Panzer Regiment 8 records the encounter in German after-action reports. 27 vehicles lost in one sequence. The speed of response eliminates tactical flexibility. By the time Axis units identify a threat and begin movement, the air attack is already in progress. The cab rank method requires precise coordination. Fighters orbit at 8,000 feet, stacked in layers. Each layer represents a squadron or flight. The lowest layer receives tasking first. Once committed, it exits the pattern to rearm. The next layer descends to ready position. The rotation is continuous during daylight hours. Pilots learn to conserve fuel, orbit in efficient patterns, and respond within seconds of radio calls. Forward air controllers operate from armored cars positioned with brigade or divisional headquarters. The vehicles carry long-range radio sets tuned to both ground and air frequencies. Controllers translate Army requests into air tasking. A battalion commander reports enemy tanks at a specific grid. The controller verifies the location on his map, checks for friendly positions nearby, and broadcasts the strike request. Orbiting fighters acknowledge, roll in, and engage. Total time from initial report to bombs on target, 5 to 8 minutes. The system eliminates bureaucracy. No written requests, no approval chains, no delay for higher headquarters to assess and assign resources. The authority rests with the controller, who coordinates directly with ground commanders and airborne pilots. Trust is absolute. Ground forces learn that air support will arrive when called. Pilots learn that targets are verified and friendly forces are clear. The mutual confidence allows rapid tempo. Colored smoke provides target marking where available. Red smoke marks enemy positions. Yellow smoke indicates friendly lines. The contrast is visual and immediate. Pilots diving from altitude identify the colors, align their approach, and release ordnance. Accuracy improves with practice. Early missions achieve approximately 30% hits within 50 meters of target. By mid-July, accuracy exceeds 60%. Experience and repetition build proficiency. An RAF after-action report reads, "Support arrived as if prearranged. The phrasing is precise." The cab rank method creates the illusion of pre-planning when, in fact, the system operates in real time. VHF radio telephone nets link ground observers to airborne fighters. The technology is not revolutionary, but the integration is. The impact on ground combat is immediate. German armored tactics rely on concentration and maneuver. Concentration requires assembling tanks in open terrain. Maneuver requires movement across observable ground. Both actions expose formations to air attack. The cab rank system punishes concentration and interdicts maneuver. Axis commanders face impossible choices: disperse and lose combat power, or concentrate and accept air attack. Either choice degrades effectiveness. The cause and effect reshapes ground combat. Real-time air-ground loop halts counterattacks at contact, not at depth. Axis commanders cannot mass armor without exposing it to immediate air interdiction. Defensive positions receive support within minutes of request. The system compresses decision cycles and eliminates the enemy's freedom of maneuver during daylight. Movement becomes risk. Concentration becomes vulnerability. Air power becomes the immediate hand of command. The 8th Army's tactical options expand because air support is not requested and scheduled but summoned and delivered. The integration that began in December 1941 reaches operational maturity in July 1942. The sky is no longer backdrop or distant support. It is the battlefield's third dimension, controlled and applied with precision. The forward controller, radio in hand, commands firepower measured in tons of high explosive delivered within minutes of need. August 1942. Benghazi to El Agheila. Photographic reconnaissance mosaics show approximately 1,200 trucks per week exiting Benghazi. Refuel points are plotted by fuel stains and tire fans visible in aerial imagery. The analysts mark choke points: coastal defile, mountain passes, bridge approaches. Baltimore and Boston bombers receive targeting folders. The mission: destroy logistics in transit before delivery to forward units. Axis planners assume night shelter ensures daytime delivery. Reality contradicts assumption. Desert Air Force Baltimore Mark II and Mark III aircraft conduct strike profiles at low level. Skip bombing techniques target stationary convoys at halt points. The attrition rate reaches approximately 47% before units receive loads, according to campaign estimates compiled from captured records and post-action assessments. The interdiction campaign targets the entire logistics chain. Ports receive attention first. Benghazi handles the majority of Axis shipping. Bombers strike the docks, warehouses, and cranes. Unloading rates fall. Ships wait offshore, vulnerable to submarine attack. The delay compounds. Cargo that reaches the docks faces a second gauntlet: the coastal road. The Via Balbia runs along the Mediterranean coast, the only paved road in the region. All traffic uses this route. The road presents ideal interdiction terrain. Defile channel vehicles into narrow corridors. Bridges cross seasonal watercourses. Mountain passes restrict speed. Each choke point becomes a target. Photographic reconnaissance identifies convoy patterns. Strikes are scheduled to coincide with expected traffic. The convoys learn to move at night, halt in daylight, and disperse under cover. The response slows delivery and increases fuel consumption. Trucks burn fuel reaching depots instead of carrying it forward. Captured Axis quartermaster staff provide details during interrogation. Fuel loss exceeds replacement. Immediate air cover is required but unavailable. The Luftwaffe cannot maintain standing patrols over every convoy route. The Desert Air Force can maintain persistent interdiction over known routes. The imbalance is numerical and operational. RAF photographic reconnaissance interpreters in Cairo compile target lists daily. Each convoy is tracked from depot to front. Each halt becomes a potential strike point. The mathematics are unforgiving. A convoy of 50 trucks carries approximately 150 tons of supplies. Air attack destroys or damages 20 vehicles. The remaining 30 deliver 90 tons, assuming no further losses. The delivery efficiency falls to 60%. Fuel consumed during the journey reduces net payload by an additional 10%. Final delivery: 80 tons instead of 150. The shrinkage is systematic. Every convoy loses tonnage to air attack, mechanical breakdown, and fuel consumption. The front receives less than half of what leaves the port. Junkers Ju-52 airlift operations divert from the Eastern Front to supplement seaborne supply. The Luftwaffe commits approximately 100 transport aircraft to the Mediterranean theater. Monthly losses to interception and anti-aircraft fire reach approximately 12%. The loss rate is unsustainable. Each Ju-52 shot down represents an asset that cannot be replaced quickly. German transport production is limited. Losses in North Africa directly impact airlift capacity on the Russian front. The strategic trade-off is unfavorable. An Axis telegram seized near Tobruk reads, "Fuel loss exceeds replacement. Immediate air cover required." The message is repeated in various forms throughout captured communications. The supply crisis is recognized but not solved. Luftwaffe fighters are committed to ground attack missions instead of convoy escort. The choice reflects competing priorities: support the front line or protect logistics. Both missions are critical. Neither receives adequate resources. The cause and effect extends beyond the immediate theater. Interdiction at the operational seam collapses unit readiness forward. Tanks arrive without fuel. Ammunition stockpiles remain below plan. Rations are cut. The frontline soldier experiences the consequence of lost convoys: shorter rations, reduced ammunition allocations, and orders to conserve fuel. Morale deteriorates when soldiers perceive that the supply system cannot sustain operations. Every ton burned in Libya echoes on the Russian front. Resources diverted to sustain North Africa cannot reinforce Stalingrad. The logistics war in the Mediterranean ties down shipping, aircraft, and fuel that Germany cannot afford to lose. The Desert Air Force wages a campaign of attrition that affects the entire Axis war effort. Strategic resources flow to a secondary theater where they are consumed in a losing effort. The diversion weakens the primary front and achieves no strategic gain. North Africa becomes a drain that accelerates Germany's logistical collapse across all theaters. October 1942. El Alamein preparation. Depot tallies record 5 million gallons of aviation fuel staged across 17 forward sites. Armorers chalk bomb loads onto ordnance rosters. The buildup is methodical. Pre-battle forecasts predict approximately 18% aircraft losses during the coming offensive. Reality achieves approximately 11.2%, reflecting system learning and operational maturity. Arthur Coningham coordinates with General Bernard Montgomery. The integration extends to planning. Air and ground staffs share maps, synchronize timings, and align objectives. Daily conferences review progress. Logistics staff of the 8th Army and Desert Air Force work in parallel. Fuel, ammunition, spare parts, all categories are calculated to sustain tempo. The arithmetic of superiority is applied before the first shot. The planning process reflects 2 years of refinement. In 1940, air support was reactive and uncoordinated. Requests moved through multiple headquarters, often arriving too late to affect the battle. By October 1942, the process is integrated. Air and ground plans are developed simultaneously. Strike targets are selected based on ground commander priorities. Timing is synchronized to the minute. The air plan supports the ground plan. The ground plan assumes air support. The Desert Air Force fields approximately 29 squadrons comprising approximately 1,479 aircraft. Fighters, fighter bombers, photographic reconnaissance, and light bombers. The inventory includes Kitty Hawk fighter bombers, Spitfire fighters for air superiority, Hurricane fighter bombers, Baltimore and Boston light bombers, and Wellington medium bombers. Each type fills a specific role. Kitty Hawks and Hurricanes attack ground targets. Spitfires maintain air superiority. Baltimores and Bostons strike deeper targets. Wellingtons bomb at night. Mine strip clearing operations prepare forward fields. Combat engineers sweep for mines and unexploded ordnance. Pierced steel plank is laid over cleared ground. Fuel dumps are established with secondary and tertiary supply points. Redundancy is planned. If one fuel dump is destroyed, operations continue from alternate sites. Ammunition stockpiles are dispersed to prevent catastrophic loss from single attacks. Radar and observer corps reporting are placed where available. Ground-controlled interception directs fighters toward incoming raids. Observer posts track friendly and enemy aircraft movements. The coverage is incomplete. Radar technology in 1942 is limited, but the system provides warning and coordination. Luftwaffe raids face interception instead of surprise. The psychological effect is significant. German crews cannot assume safe passage to their targets. The system is comprehensive. Logistics support operations. Intelligence provides targeting. Maintenance sustains readiness. Command integrates all elements. An intercepted Luftwaffe memo notes, enemy air organization of exemplary precision. Our reaction delayed by exhaustion, the observation is accurate. German air units operate from strained logistics and depleted personnel. Pilot fatigue is chronic. Aircraft availability is low. Replacement rates lag losses. The exhaustion is cumulative, the result of 2 years of continuous operations without adequate rest or reinforcement. The cause and effect is direct. Stocks plus scheduling equals assured sortie density at each hour and every day after. The Luftwaffe cannot match sortie rates. German and Italian air units operate from bases farther from the front, with thinner logistics and lower serviceability. The Desert Air Force operates close to the line with robust supply and disciplined maintenance. The numerical advantage becomes an operational advantage, which becomes a strategic advantage. Superiority is achieved not by novelty but by arithmetic applied. The Desert Air Force does not deploy new aircraft types or revolutionary tactics. It deploys more aircraft, maintains them better, and integrates their employment with ground operations seamlessly. The result is predictable. The side with more resources, better organization, and tighter integration prevails. The L-alamine buildup represents the maturation of a system refined over 2 years. The cab-rank method, forward air control, embedded liaison officers, shared communications, all elements function as designed. The offensive will test the system under maximum stress. The test will confirm that air-ground integration, when executed with discipline and adequate resources, confers decisive advantage. Victory is constructed in October through meticulous preparation. The battle in November will demonstrate the result of that preparation. 23 October to 5 November 1942. El-Alamein. The operations board ticks upward. By midnight of 5 November, the chalk shows 10,200 sorties for the period. The figure represents sustained operational tempo under combat conditions. Axis forces count on elastic defense sustained by depot links. Reality severs those links. Strikes destroy approximately 5,000 tons of transport. 38 aircraft are destroyed on the ground. 84 are shot down in air combat. The first day of the offensive establishes the pattern. Artillery opens at 21:40 hours on 23 October. By dawn on 24 October, Desert Air Force squadrons are airborne. The first wave strikes Axis artillery positions identified by photographic reconnaissance. The second wave attacks supply dumps. The third wave interdicts roads leading to the front. The cycle repeats throughout daylight hours. Axis forces attempting to reinforce the line encounter continuous air attack. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel writes in his diary, "We move only at night. The sun belongs to England. The observation captures the tactical reality. Daylight movement invites immediate air attack. Axis units disperse into wadis and scrub during daylight hours, then attempt movement after dark. The restriction halves operational tempo. Orders are delayed. Reinforcements arrive late. Counterattacks are constrained to narrow windows of darkness. The Luftwaffe attempts to contest the airspace. German and Italian fighters engage Desert Air Force formations daily. The numerical imbalance is overwhelming. For every Axis fighter, 3 Allied fighters are available. Loss rates favor the Desert Air Force. Experienced German pilots are killed or captured. Replacement pilots arrive with inadequate training. Italian units withdraw to rear bases after suffering unsustainable losses. By early November, Axis air opposition is sporadic and ineffective. British Intelligence Digests dated 6 November note, "Enemy land units now operate in isolation from their depots. The isolation is not geographic but operational. Supply convoys cannot reach forward units during daylight. Fuel trucks burn on the coastal road. Ammunition columns scatter under repeated attack. The front line becomes an island, supplied intermittently and inadequately. The interdiction campaign targets every element of the logistics chain. Fuel trucks are priority targets. Without fuel, armor cannot maneuver. Artillery cannot reposition. Infantry cannot be transported. The fuel shortage compounds daily. Axis forces burn reserves attempting to sustain defensive positions. Counterattacks consume fuel without achieving objectives. By early November, German tank units report fuel levels below 10% of capacity. Movement is measured in kilometers, not hours of operation. Ammunition supply deteriorates simultaneously. Artillery fire is rationed. Anti-tank guns conserve rounds. Infantry units report shortages of small arms ammunition. The restrictions limit defensive flexibility. Positions cannot be reinforced with preparatory fire. Counterattacks lack artillery support. The material advantage shifts decisively to the 8th Army, which operates with ample supply. Kitty Hawk fighter bombers carry 250-pound and 500-pound stores. Spitfire Mark V fighters provide top cover. Baltimore bombers deliver precision strikes on road choke points. Ground radar and direction-finding coordination are employed where available. The technology is conventional, but the application is relentless. Pilots fly multiple sorties per day. Ground crews rearm and refuel aircraft in under 30 minutes. The turnaround time enables high sortie rates from limited assets. A squadron of 16 aircraft generates 40 to 50 sorties daily through rapid servicing. The pace is exhausting for crews but decisive for operations. The Luftwaffe cannot match the tempo. German ground crews lack spare parts, fuel, and personnel. Serviceability falls. Sortie rates decline. The gap widens daily. The cause and effect compresses Axis operational choices to one: withdraw. Elastic defense requires supply. Supply requires movement. Movement during daylight is impossible. Night movement is insufficient to sustain defensive positions. The arithmetic forces retreat. By owning the day, the Desert Air Force eliminates the enemy's ability to sustain a coherent front. The battle is decided not by a single engagement but by accumulated air superiority that grinds logistics into collapse. Rommel orders withdrawal on 4 November. The retreat begins under cover of darkness. Daylight finds the columns on the road, exposed and vulnerable. January 1943. Tripolitania. Engineers mark an airstrip site every approximately 50 miles. A field is laid in under 72 hours using captured plant and equipment. The technique is proven. The Desert Air Force has laid scores of fields across the desert. Now, as Axis forces retreat westward, the airfields follow. The moving front remains under continuous air coverage. A retreat expects open sky behind it. German columns assume that as they withdraw, they leave the immediate combat zone and enter relative safety. Reality denies this assumption. Forward bases keep strike radius over the columns every daylight hour. The Desert Air Force leapfrogs air echelons in coordination with ground advance. Mobile petroleum oil lubricants units follow with drum trains. Pierced steel plank track is laid, used, and recovered for the next site. The pursuit demonstrates operational innovation. Traditional doctrine suggests that advancing forces outrun their air support. Airfields remain static while ground units move forward. The gap between front line and air bases grows until air support becomes ineffective. The Desert Air Force solves this problem through mobility. Airfield construction wings are fully mobile. Equipment is standardized. Procedures are rehearsed. A site is selected, cleared, graded, and operational within 3 days. By the time a field is exhausted by the front's advance, the next field is ready. Captured equipment accelerates the process. Italian graders, bulldozers, and trucks are pressed into service. Fuel dumps abandoned by retreating Axis forces supply Desert Air Force operations. Ammunition stockpiles left behind are sometimes used against their former owners. The spoils of pursuit sustain the pursuit. Airfield construction wing commanders oversee the process. Teams operate in shifts around the clock. Site survey begins as soon as a location is secured by ground forces. Reconnaissance identifies suitable terrain. Flat ground, good drainage, minimal obstacles. Engineers mark the site and begin clearing. Bulldozers level the surface. Graders smooth inconsistencies. Pierced steel plank is laid in interlocking sections. Fuel drums are positioned. Tents are erected for operations and maintenance. The field is declared operational. Squadrons arrive, refuel, rearm, and resume operations. Total elapsed time: 60 to 72 hours. Luftwaffe Gruppe Africa situation reports note uninterrupted pursuit from the air. German staff officers calculate that British air support will thin as the advance lengthens. The calculation is logical but incorrect. The Desert Air Force maintains pressure because it moves with the advance. Retreat offers no respite. Daylight offers no safety. The sky remains hostile from Alamein to Tripoli, from Tripoli to the Tunisian frontier. January bomb tonnage reaches approximately 2,700 tons dropped on retreat routes. The pressure is constant. Columns move at night, halt at dawn, and endure air attack through the daylight hours. Movement rates fall. Vehicle losses climb. Morale deteriorates. Soldiers abandoning vehicles cite fuel exhaustion and air attack as primary causes. Interviews with prisoners of war confirm the retreat was dominated by fear of air attack. The psychological effect compounds the physical. Troops under continuous air attack lose cohesion. Units fragment. Stragglers fall behind. Wounded are abandoned. Discipline erodes. The retreat becomes a rout in sections. Order is maintained only through iron discipline and the threat of summary punishment. German non-commissioned officers drive formations forward at gunpoint. Italian units dissolve entirely, soldiers dispersing into the countryside. The cause and effect is simple. Base mobility equals constant pressure. An army in retreat requires freedom of movement to regroup. The Desert Air Force denies that freedom. Each convoy becomes a line of reference points for the next day's strikes. Photographic reconnaissance identifies halts, refuel points, and concentration areas. Strikes follow within hours. The cycle repeats daily. The moving front demonstrates that air superiority is not static. Controlling the airspace over one sector is valuable. Maintaining control as the front shifts is decisive. The Desert Air Force proves capable of both. Airfields move faster than retreating columns can escape. The sky remains hostile from Alamein to Tripoli, from Tripoli to the Tunisian frontier. There is no sanctuary in retreat. The pursuit is aerial, relentless, and inescapable. March 1943. Medellin to Mareth. A forward controller reads a grid square over radiotelephone. For minutes later, Kitty Hawks appear overhead. The cab rank method has reached operational perfection. Axis staff officers calculate that Allied loss rates will climb with increased tempo. Reality: the campaign achieves a low of 1 aircraft lost per 26 sorties. German corps-level staff diaries note approximately 85 operational aircraft versus more than 1,000 Allied. Coningham and Montgomery maintain coordination logs. The integration is seamless. Daily conferences align operations. Air targets support ground objectives. Ground movements create air opportunities. The synchronization is total. Artillery and air deconfliction tables ensure fire support does not conflict. Timed smoke marks targets for fighter bombers. Fighter bomber cycles are tied to armor thrusts. The system operates with the precision of industrial process. The deconfliction process prevents fratricide. Artillery fires are planned on time schedules. Air strikes are allocated specific time windows. Ground forces mark positions with colored panels. Forward air controllers verify target locations against maps. Pilots cross-reference grid coordinates before attacking. Multiple checks prevent errors. The system is not perfect, isolated incidents occur, but the error rate is minimal. Friendly fire casualties from air attack are measured in single digits across thousands of sorties. Communication equipment improves through experience. VHF radio sets are standardized across units. Frequencies are assigned by sector. Call signs are simplified. Controllers and pilots develop common terminology. A target description that once required multiple transmissions now requires one sentence. Efficiency improves through repetition. The learning curve flattens as procedures become routine. A German diary entry reads, "Our strength in Africa now 85 operational aircraft. Enemy 1,000 plus, the disparity is overwhelming. Luftwaffe units cannot contest the airspace. Italian air units withdraw to rear bases. The Desert Air Force owns the sky from ground level to operational altitude. No axis movement occurs without observation. No concentration forms without attack. The numerical gap reflects cumulative attrition. The Luftwaffe entered North Africa with approximately 300 combat aircraft in early 1941. Losses from combat, accidents, and maintenance failures eroded strength faster than replacements arrived. By March 1943, fewer than 100 aircraft remain operational. The Desert Air Force, conversely, grows stronger. Replacement aircraft arrive regularly. Damaged aircraft are repaired and returned to service. Pilot rotation maintains experience levels while preventing exhaustion. Training differences compound the gap. Desert Air Force pilots average 300 flying hours before entering combat. German replacement pilots arrive with less than 100 hours. The experience gap is decisive in air combat. Veteran pilots survive and accumulate kills. Inexperienced pilots are shot down in their first engagements. The loss of experienced personnel cannot be quickly remedied. Training requires time, fuel, and aircraft resources Germany lacks. The cause and effect is absolute. Numerical and procedural overmatch turns tactical encounters into predictable outcomes. The Desert Air Force does not fight for air superiority. It possesses it. Axis forces do not contest the sky. They endure its effects. The ratio of approximately 12-1 is not a statistic, it is a forecast. Every engagement, every movement, every defensive position operates under the assumption of hostile air presence. A 12-1 air ratio predicts outcomes with mathematical certainty. The side with air superiority maneuvers freely. The side without it moves at night, disperses during day, and accepts attrition as inevitable. The Mareth line cannot be reinforced by day. Counterattacks cannot mass without exposure. Defense becomes delay, and delay becomes retreat. The numbers dictate the result before the first shot is fired. Air superiority is not advantage. It is dominance. The Axis forces in Tunisia face an opponent that controls the third dimension absolutely. 1-13 May 1943. Tunisia. Operation summaries list 8,700 sorties in the final phase. Axis columns bunch under tree lines and wadis. Photographic reconnaissance frames record their positions. The imagery is analyzed, targets are assigned, and strikes follow. The cycle compresses into hours. Final defense expects to trade space for time. Reality. Mobility falls approximately 60% under sustained bombardment. Depots are unreachable by day. The final campaign concentrates overwhelming force. Allied air units from multiple commands converge on Tunisia. The Desert Air Force operates alongside United States Army Air Forces units and additional RAF squadrons. The combined strength exceeds 1,500 combat aircraft. Axis forces field fewer than 100. The ratio is 15-1. The outcome is inevitable. German staff officers plan a fighting withdrawal to buy time for evacuation. The plan requires mobility, supply, and cohesion. Air power denies all three. Columns attempting to reposition are attacked from dawn to dusk. Supply convoys are destroyed on the roads. Unit cohesion fragments under continuous pressure. The plan collapses in execution. General Hans-Jürgen von Arnim is captured on 12 May and interrogated. His statement is unambiguous. Our supply chain had ceased to exist. The observation is accurate. Heavy concentration on road nets, ferries, and rail sidings severs logistics. Armed photographic reconnaissance escorts provide additional firepower during imagery missions. Fighter sweeps over airfields destroy remaining Axis aircraft on the ground. By early May, Luftwaffe and Regia Aeronautica units are grounded for lack of fuel and spare parts. Evacuation by sea proves impossible. Allied air forces dominate the sea lanes. Transport ships attempting to reach Tunisian ports are sunk or turned back. Luftwaffe transport aircraft attempting evacuation flights are intercepted and shot down. Ju-52 losses climb above 50% on some routes. The air bridge collapses. Troops awaiting evacuation realize no rescue is coming. An RAF post-action report concludes, victory owed equally to bombs and fuel denied. The phrasing captures the dual nature of air power in North Africa. Tactical strikes destroy equipment and personnel. Interdiction denies supply. Together, the effects are systemic. An army cannot fight without fuel, ammunition, or food. The Desert Air Force ensures that Axis forces receive insufficient quantities of all three. The strangulation is methodical. Road junctions receive continuous attention. Bridges are destroyed and repaired, then destroyed again. Ferries are sunk. Rail lines are cut. Every logistics node becomes a target. Repair crews work at night under blackout conditions. Repairs are bombed the following day. The cycle is exhausting and futile. Infrastructure cannot be sustained under such pressure. Systemic interdiction combined with ground advance triggers mass surrender. Approximately 275,000 prisoners are taken by 13 May 1943. The figure exceeds Stalingrad's capture total. The collapse is total. Entire divisions surrender intact. German and Italian soldiers walk into captivity in formed units, carrying their rifles but lacking ammunition, fuel, or hope. Officers surrender with their staffs. Equipment is abandoned on roadsides. Tanks without fuel, trucks without tires, artillery without shells. The final act is bureaucratic. Surrender documents signed, prisoner columns marched to camps, and equipment inventoried. The war in the Mediterranean theater shifts to Sicily, then Italy. The lessons of North Africa follow. Air-ground integration, proven in the desert, becomes doctrine for subsequent campaigns. The methods refined under harsh conditions inform operations in Europe. The Desert Air Force's legacy extends beyond North Africa into every subsequent Allied campaign. North Africa ends not with a single decisive battle but with a denied supply chain. The campaign demonstrates that modern warfare is decided by logistics as much as tactics. Control the supply lines and the front follows. Deny mobility and defense becomes impossible. The Desert Air Force applied these principles with relentless consistency. The result was the complete collapse of Axis forces in North Africa and the opening of the Mediterranean to Allied operations. September 1943. Salerno, Italy. Controllers at the beachhead deploy the desert method. Forward air control, stacked fighter bombers, timed calls. Amphibious landings historically suffer from thin air cover in the first days. Reality at Salerno contradicts historical pattern. Former Desert Air Force units within the Northwest African Tactical Air Force replicate the system on the Italian mainland. General Carl Spaatz of the United States Army Air Forces observes the integration. Air Vice Marshal Coningham's method is disseminated across Allied air forces. The toolset is identical: VHF nets, photographic reconnaissance strike loops, rapid strip construction inland of the beaches. The doctrine proven in Libya is now written into Mediterranean operations orders. United States and Allied directives adopt close air support by on-call fighter bombers as standard procedure. The innovation is procedural, not technological. The aircraft, radios, and bombs are conventional. The method of employment, embedded controllers, shared communications, immediate response, is revolutionary. What began as field improvisation in the desert becomes formal doctrine for combined operations. The cause and effect extends beyond North Africa. A field solution from Libya becomes the template for air-ground operations in Italy, France, and Northwest Europe. The Desert Air Force's legacy is not a single battle or campaign but a method that reshapes how air power is applied. The integration of air and ground forces, proven under extreme conditions in the Western Desert, becomes the standard for modern combined arms warfare. What started as improvisation is now written into orders. The desert method becomes doctrine. 1945. London. Post-war analysis. Staff tables tally sorties, tonnage, and capture totals. The figures are comprehensive. From 1941 to 1943, the Desert Air Force and successor units conduct more than 400,000 sorties across the Mediterranean theater. Thousands of vehicles are destroyed. Scores of airfields are neutralized. Enemy aircraft are destroyed in the air and on the ground. Interdiction tonnages correlate directly to frontline supply famine. Pre-war air power theory emphasized strategic bombing. The Desert Air Force demonstrates that tactical air power can decide campaigns by starving movement. Coningham reflects in 1946, air power matured in Africa. The observation is factual. The method developed in the desert, integrated command, forward control, persistent interdiction, becomes the prototype of the modern air army. An RAF study describes the Desert Air Force as the prototype of the modern air army. The phrasing acknowledges innovation. The system passes to Italy, then to 2nd Tactical Air Force in Northwest Europe. The lessons learned under harsh conditions inform operations in temperate climates. The integration of air and ground, proven in sand, is applied in hedgerows and forests. The method transcends terrain. The principles remain constant. shared command, common communications, and relentless application of air power in support of ground objectives. Victory is measured not by kilometers taken but by the hours of flight that made movement possible for one side and impossible for the other. The Desert Air Force controlled the daylight hours. That control translated into logistical collapse for the enemy and freedom of maneuver for Allied forces. Air superiority was not abstract. It was tangible. It meant convoys reached the front intact. It meant tanks received fuel. It meant wounded were evacuated and reinforcements arrived on schedule. The Axis experience was inverse. Daylight became danger. Movement became risk. Supply became scarcity. The sky, once neutral space, became hostile territory. The result was predictable. An army that cannot move, cannot resupply, and cannot maneuver will be defeated regardless of courage or tactical skill. The Desert Air Force imposed those conditions through methodical application of integrated air power. The final accounting is numerical. 400,000 sorties, thousands of tons of bombs delivered, tens of thousands of vehicles destroyed, 275,000 prisoners. The figures represent industrial-scale application of air power. The story of the Desert Air Force is the story of how organization, integration, and relentless execution transform numerical advantage into operational dominance. The sky became the decisive front, and the side that owned it wrote the outcome. What is your perspective on this part of history? Share your thoughts in the comments, because every memory and reflection helps keep the past alive.